Welcome to Uncloseted Conversations. Even if you stumbled upon this channel by accident, you are welcome here. The stories here are from my heart, from my soul, from my pen to your ears. I hope that you will stay a little longer and open yourself to the magic of storytelling. Here I write fiction, and though not always aligning with reality, it still tugs at heartstrings. Stories are escapes and sometimes a balm to the soul. So, enjoy your time here, and if reality presses down too loud and too hard, come knock at the door, come in, take a seat, grab a coffee, and just exhale. These are veil-bound stories, and the space is free and non-judgmental. Sit back, earphones or pods in, and let's listen to another exquisite romance. Love Had to Be Enough. Two Hearts. One Secret. Love Had to Be Enough. Chapter 1. First Contact. Francesca Frankie Palmer adjusted the tail on her latest patient, her fingers moving with careful precision despite the lingering tremor from the old accident. She called them patients because dead animals sounded wrong, cheap, and utterly unprofessional. Her scalpel glinted under the dim light of the studio, and for a moment, she let herself sink into the rhythm of sewing, each stitch a small act of control over a chaotic world. Her phone pinged. A small, insistent chime that she had trained herself to ignore. You matched with Logan. Start the connection now. Frankie exhaled slowly, placing the scalpel down, her palm brushing against the faint scar that ran just below her index finger, a souvenir from that day the windscreen shattered. Her hand had healed, mostly, but the memory remained, a whisper in her bones. Precision was safety, control was sanity. She flipped the phone over, deciding against opening the notification. Her friend Taylor had bullied her onto this dating app months ago, insisting she wasn't hiding from life by refusing to date. Frankie had matched with 10 women since, yet hadn't responded to a single one. Until now. Her thumb hovered over the screen. Another notification. This one more insistent. Logan wants to chat. Frankie's gaze drifted over the profile picture that appeared. Auburn curls framed a small, delicate face, hazel eyes large and penetrating. Something about those eyes made her chest skip a beat. Against all reason, she tapped the heart icon. Confetti exploded across the screen. Frankie blinked, a small smile tugging at her lips as she scrolled through the pictures. Logan posing in museums, city streets, sunlit gardens. Every frame was curated but natural, effortless. Great. Another local trying to be a tourist. Jesus, why did I agree to this shit? Her thumb hovered dangerously close to the delete button. But then, the chat pinged. Describe your deepest fear. Frankie's hand paused midair. Women rarely asked anything beyond the surface. Likes, dislikes, weekend plans. This was different, vulnerable, dangerous in a way that intrigued her. She leaned back, her chair creaking slightly, and typed slowly. Losing myself. The ability to create, to feel. To wake up one day and realize the world has moved on, and I've been frozen in place. The response came almost instantly. Warm, thoughtful, human. Their conversation bloomed from there, 3 hours of laughter, reflection, confessions, shared observations. Frankie found herself revealing snippets she hadn't told anyone, not even Taylor. The accident. The cabin fever. The strange solace she found in her work. Logan listened, responded, reflected, and most importantly, made her feel seen. By the time Logan said she had an early morning appointment and needed sleep, Frankie realized she had been smiling, genuinely, for the first time in months. She said goodnight, logged off, and let herself sink into the quiet of the studio, her hands resting lightly on the cat she had just finished sewing. For the first time, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt full of possibility, of connection, of something dangerously exciting. Chapter 2. Face to Face. The sun had just begun to peek over the horizon, spilling golden streaks across Logan Morgan's bedroom. She stretched lazily, still half asleep, her mind already orbiting the conversation from the previous night. A small, private smile tugged at her lips. She reached for her phone, expecting the usual morning notifications, but all she found was a single message from the app. "Hope you got some sleep. Coffee on me at the grind." Her pulse quickened just slightly. The conversation with Frankie had been unsettlingly effortless. Normally, first chats were cautious, clinical. But with Frankie, every word had carried weight, subtle humor, honesty. Logan hadn't just been talking, she'd been thinking, feeling, reflecting. And now, this invitation sat on her screen like a small challenge. She typed back quickly. "That serves you right for arguing with me about history." Satisfied, she locked her screen and moved through her morning routine with precision. White slacks, a gray button-down, hair tucked neatly behind her ears. Breakfast was swift: coffee, cereal, rinsing the bowl, checking her appointments. Everything in her life was accounted for, categorized, predictable until Frankie. Across the city, Frankie Palmer was already busy with work. Her studio smelled faintly of cedar and fabric glue. A tail was pinned just so, ready for its final stitches. And yet, even as she focused on the task at hand, a grin tugged at her lips, nearly splitting her face. The auburn curls, the hazel eyes, the way Logan's words had teased her intellect and her heart, they were still there, a private warmth she carried into her day. The grind was a small, sunlit cafe tucked in the corner of the city. Logan arrived first, scanning the room with practiced precision. Her historian's eye noticed the subtle shifts in lighting, the layers of decor that suggested both thought and intentionality. And then she saw Frankie, standing near the entrance, casual in jeans and a soft sweater, hands tucked into pockets, eyes scanning the cafe as though it were another kind of specimen to examine. When their eyes met, something shifted. Logan felt that familiar pulse of curiosity, the flutter that came when something or someone unexpected managed to breach her control. Frankie's smile widened, shy yet daring, and Logan's chest tightened just slightly. "Coffee?" Frankie asked, voice smooth, steady. "Yes," Logan said, before she realized she'd smiled back. They moved to a small corner table, the chatter of other patrons fading around them. Conversation was easy, flowing as if the app had merely been an overture to a symphony already in progress. Logan noticed how deliberate Frankie's gestures were, the careful way she held her hands, the light tremor that sometimes betrayed her otherwise calm exterior. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but Logan saw it. And in that moment, something deep in her shifted. Hours seemed to pass unnoticed. Laughter blended with serious discourse. Logan caught herself leaning forward, listening with intent, captivated not just by the person, but by the life that had shaped her. Frankie spoke of her work with careful reverence. By the time the sun dipped lower, painting the city in amber, Logan felt an unfamiliar tension in her chest. Desire? Curiosity? Fear of losing control? Perhaps all of it. She didn't want this to end, not yet. And Frankie, noticing the subtle shift, allowed herself a quiet satisfaction. The connection had survived the digital divide. The spark had jumped into the real world. For the first time in a long while, both women knew that love, or something like it, might have to be enough. Chapter 3: Shared Moments. Logan sipped her coffee, eyes tracing the steam curling above the cup, but her thoughts were elsewhere on Frankie. She could still hear the cadence of her laugh, the subtle way she spoke about her work, professional but tinged with warmth. "I swear," Logan said, leaning forward, resting her chin in her palm, "you make even medical stuff sound exciting." Frankie chuckled, tilting her head, auburn curls brushing her cheeks. "Exciting? I promise, it's usually not. But it keeps me busy and sane." Logan's eyes softened. Busy and sane. Sounds noble. Makes me feel like I'm talking to someone who actually gets stakes. Steaks, Frankie teased, leaning back in her chair. Don't tell me historians get dramatic about coffee orders too. Only when the coffee's bad, Logan shot back, and they both laughed. Over the next week, coffee became ritual. Morning lattes at the grind, quick afternoon walks when Logan had a gap in her research, late-night texts dissecting minor historical debates or favorite books. Their conversation flowed with a rhythm neither had expected, no forced flirtation, just connection. You know, Logan said one evening, walking beside Frankie along the riverbank, I wasn't expecting any of this. You're not what I thought I'd meet here. And you're full of surprises too, Frankie replied softly, letting her gaze linger on Logan's profile, catching the way the streetlights danced in her hazel eyes. I suppose it's nice when someone surprises you. Logan stopped, her chest tightening. I like being surprised. Especially by you. As they continued walking, shoulders brushing lightly, fingers almost touching, both knew this was more than casual connection. Every shared glance, every laugh, every debate over history or silly movie quotes drew them closer. By the time they parted that night, standing on opposite sides of the street, neither wanted to move first. Logan finally smiled, whispered, tomorrow. Frankie mirrored the smile perfectly. Tomorrow. Chapter 4. Deepening. Dinner was accidental, a late invitation after Logan's meeting ran over, but both welcomed it. They sat across from each other in a small, cozy bistro, lights low, soft jazz brushing the air. I didn't know you liked Pinot Noir, Logan said, swirling the wine in her glass, watching the color shift. I didn't, Frankie admitted, smirking. But you seemed persuasive. And I like trying new things with good company. Logan's lips quirked in amusement. Good company, huh? That's me? That's you, Frankie replied without hesitation, eyes flicking to Logan's in a way that made her stomach flutter. Conversation meandered through history, art, favorite childhood memories, and quiet confessions. Logan found herself leaning closer, listening not just to the words, but to the spaces in between. Frankie noticed the way Logan's eyes sparkled when she laughed, the subtle curl of her fingers around her glass, the thoughtful exhalation before she spoke. At one point, Logan reached across the table, brushing a stray curl from Frankie's forehead. You're really something, you know that? Frankie's heart lurched, startled. You mean that in the good way or the I'll scare you off eventually way? Logan laughed softly. Definitely the good way. But, she paused, eyes searching Frankie's face, I can't stop wondering what it'll be like when we're more than this. Frankie felt the heat rise in her cheeks. You'll have to wait and see, she said coyly, but her hand brushed Logan's lightly, testing the current. Later, walking Logan back, they lingered at the doorway. Neither wanted to leave. I don't usually do this, Logan admitted, voice low. But I feel like I've known you forever. Frankie swallowed, whispering, I feel the same. It's strange. And perfect. Their hands met, fingers intertwining almost instinctively, like puzzle pieces finally finding their match. Neither pulled away, letting the moment stretch. When Logan finally stepped back, her forehead brushed against Frankie's, a feather-like contact that spoke of trust, of desire, of a bond forming faster than either expected. Good night, Logan murmured. Good night, Frankie echoed, knowing neither of them would sleep easily tonight. Chapter 5. Crossing Closer. The city lights glimmered like scattered gems as Logan led the way into her apartment building. The air was warm with the last sighs of the evening, a soft breeze curling around them. Frankie's hand brushed against Logan's at the elevator, a touch fleeting yet deliberate, and Logan felt her pulse jump. You always this organized? Frankie asked, tilting her head as she stepped inside Logan's apartment. Her eyes scanned the space with curiosity, lingering on the bookshelves, the artifacts from Logan's research, the quiet order that filled every corner. I like to know where things are, Logan said, leaning against the doorway, studying Frankie's reaction. Makes life simpler. Frankie let out a soft laugh, the kind that tugged at Logan's chest. I suppose that makes sense. I wanted to see how a historian lives. She mumbled the last part under her breath, but Logan caught it. And? Logan asked, stepping closer, the distance between them shrinking. Frankie's eyes met hers, dark with amusement and something else, something unspoken. I like what I see, she said, voice low, almost a whisper. They moved to the small couch near the window, the city below twinkling in reflection. Logan poured 2 glasses of wine, offering one to Frankie, who accepted with a subtle tilt of her chin. Silence fell, not uncomfortable, but heavy with possibility. Do you ever just let go? Frankie asked suddenly, a dangerous edge to her tone. Not thinking about work, about history, about everything that's supposed to make sense? Logan's breath caught. Sometimes, she said, leaning back, letting the wine warm her hands. Though, I think I'd be better at it with someone to remind me how. Frankie moved just a fraction closer, their knees brushing. Maybe I can help with that. Her words were casual, but the heat in her gaze told a different story. The conversation slipped into laughter, whispered stories, small confessions, the kind that made both of them lean in, closer, unconsciously seeking the other's presence. Frankie's hand found Logan's on the couch, their fingers tangling naturally. Logan didn't pull away. Instead, she let her thumb trace slow circles over Frankie's skin, feeling the subtle tremor there and cherishing it. Frankie's voice dropped, softer now. You have a way of making everything feel right, even when it's me. Logan smiled, letting her forehead brush against Frankie's. Even when it's you? You know what I mean, Frankie whispered, leaning in. Even when I'm messy. Or complicated. The space between them closed, drawn together by quiet magnetism, desire, and trust. A hand cupped a cheek, lips hovered just inches apart. Frankie's breath mingled with Logan's, warm and inviting. I want to kiss you, Logan murmured. Then don't think, Frankie replied, closing the distance. Their lips met softly at first, testing, savoring, a tentative exploration that quickly deepened. Fingers threaded through hair, small sighs escaping, the city outside fading into irrelevance. Every brush of skin, every whispered word, every laugh caught between kisses pushed them closer, not just physically, but in a way that tethered their hearts. Hours passed unnoticed. The apartment grew warmer, quieter, cocooned in the intimacy they shared. Frankie's hand lingered on Logan's chest, feeling the steady thrum of life beneath. Logan's arms wrapped around Frankie, drawing her closer, a quiet claim made without words. Finally, they broke apart just enough to breathe, foreheads pressed together, sharing the quiet laughter of people who have found something rare. I don't want this night to end, Logan whispered. Neither do I, Frankie replied, a soft smile curving her lips. Not ever. And in that moment, words weren't enough. Only presence, warmth, and the unspoken truth that they were falling slowly, irreversibly, into something that neither had expected, but both knew they couldn't live without. Chapter 6. The Pull Between Them. The morning light slipped through the blinds, catching the edges of Logan's apartment in a soft glow. Frankie stretched on the couch, limbs tangled comfortably with Logan's, her head resting against the curve of her shoulder. It felt absurdly natural, like they had always belonged together in this space. You're warm, Logan murmured, eyes half closed, tracing patterns on Frankie's arm. And stubborn, even in your sleep. Frankie let out a soft laugh, turning slightly to meet her gaze. You mean, irresistible? Maybe both, Logan said, brushing a stray curl behind Frankie's ear, her thumb lingering. I'm not sure I'm going to recover from this. Recover? Frankie whispered, smirking, her lips brushing against Logan's jaw. From what? Falling for me? Yes, Logan admitted, a slow smile tugging at her lips. Exactly that. Breakfast became a quiet affair, sitting side by side on the small kitchen counter, feet brushing, laughter spilling over the edges of conversation. They shared stories about childhood mistakes, embarrassing moments, favorite books, and songs that had shaped them. Every word, every glance, every brush of fingers over a hand was a silent vow: presence, attention, care. Later that day, Logan found herself walking Frankie to the elevator, reluctant to let go. "Do you want to go for a walk?" she asked, a teasing edge in her tone, though the longing behind it was unmistakable. Frankie grinned, slipping her hand into Logan's. "Always. You know I can't resist a historian on her territory." The city outside was a blur as they meandered down quiet streets, talking about everything and nothing. Logan caught herself leaning in closer than necessary, laughing at jokes that weren't that funny, her fingers brushing Frankie's every chance she could. At a small park, they stopped to sit on a bench, the air buzzing with the golden warmth of late afternoon. Frankie rested her head against Logan's shoulder, letting the quiet of the city frame the moment. "You're really something," Logan whispered, tilting her head to press a kiss to Frankie's temple. "Do you know that?" "I think I'm starting to figure that out," Frankie murmured, hand resting on Logan's chest, feeling the steady heartbeat beneath. "And I'm okay with it." They talked less after that, letting the silence speak. Fingers intertwined, shoulders brushing, knees nudging lightly. Every small gesture was intimacy, shared warmth, mutual trust, quiet desire. As the evening approached, they wandered back to Logan's apartment, reluctant to part. In the kitchen, Frankie leaned back against the counter, eyes sparkling, hair falling in a way that made Logan's chest tighten. "You're dangerous, you know that?" Logan said, voice low. "How so?" Frankie teased, stepping closer, brushing against her side. "You make me want everything." "And I've only known you a week," Logan admitted, a nervous laugh following the confession. Frankie's lips curved in a slow, wicked smile. "Good," she whispered. "I want that too. I want it all." Their lips met again, softer this time, slower, exploratory. Hands roamed cautiously, savoring the moment, learning each other. Every laugh, every whispered word, every lingering touch deepened the connection. Later, as they lay side by side, limbs tangled, Frankie traced lazy patterns over Logan's arm. "Promise me something," she said, voice low, intimate. "What?" "That we take our time. Enjoy this. Learn each other. Don't rush it." Logan pressed her forehead to Frankie's. "I promise. I don't want anything else but this, us." And in that promise, in the weight of those words, the pull between them grew stronger, tethering them together even more tightly. They didn't need to speak about the future yet. Right now, the closeness, the laughter, the quiet intimacy was enough. The secret Frankie carried still waited in the wings, but neither of them could have known how it would test this fragile, perfect bond yet. Chapter 7: Unspoken Walls. The cafe was quieter than usual, sunlight drifting lazily through the windows, dust motes sparkling in the air. Logan stirred her coffee absent-mindedly, eyes scanning the street outside, lost in thought. "You're quiet," Frankie observed, leaning forward, elbows on the table, fingers brushing the rim of her cup. "Something on your mind?" Logan shook her head, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "Just thinking about things that matter. Life, history, how quickly people forget what's important." Frankie nodded slowly. "Yeah, I get that." She paused, watching Logan's hands move with quiet deliberation over her cup. "You know, you have a way of making me think hard about things I usually try not to. Is that good or bad?" Logan asked, tilting her head, hazel eyes locking with Frankie's. "Good," Frankie said quickly. "Mostly." Her heart thudded, betraying her calm tone. They talked then about childhood memories, trips, family quirks, books that shaped them. Logan laughed at a story about Frankie's first attempt at cooking, and Frankie laughed with her. The sound light, but laced with something deeper, a tether pulling them closer. "And you?" Frankie asked, voice softer, curious. "Any childhood fears? Things that stuck with you?" Logan's eyes darkened slightly, a shadow crossing her features. "Actually, yes. One, very specific." She leaned back, fingers wrapping around her mug. "Stuffed animals." Frankie blinked, startled by this seemingly mundane confession. "Stuffed animals?" Logan nodded. "A toy bear. One of those big, floppy ones. It was poorly made. Stuffing everywhere. The face looked wrong, like it was staring at me. I didn't sleep in that room for months. I still get uneasy around badly made stuffed animals." Frankie's stomach twisted, heat creeping up her neck. Her mind raced, heart thundering, not from Logan's story, but from the realization that the very thing she does could destroy this. She felt a sudden, sharp panic. She said, too quickly, too lightly, forcing a laugh that didn't reach her eyes. "I can imagine. That's intense." Logan gave her a sharp look, noticing the hesitation. "You okay?" "Yeah," Frankie said, swallowing hard. "I just get it. I understand fears sticking with you." They moved the conversation to lighter topics, but Frankie's mind was elsewhere. Every word Logan had spoken, every shadow in her voice, hammered home a single truth. She could never reveal her work to Logan, not yet. Not when it could twist to simple, growing trust into something painful, something that might undo this fragile bond they had built. The rest of the afternoon was sweet, filled with soft laughter and touches grazing hands, but beneath it all, Frankie felt the tight knot of tension. Desire and connection warred with fear and secrecy. By the time they parted, Logan pressed a hand to Frankie's cheek, whispering, "See you tomorrow?" "Yes," Frankie murmured, but her eyes betrayed the storm beneath. Walking home, Frankie's mind replayed Logan's words, her story about the stuffed bear. And in that quiet space, she understood something fundamental. Her secret wasn't just hers. It could shatter what she and Logan had so delicately woven. She had to protect it at all costs. And for the first time, the thrill of their intimacy mingled with a pulse of dread. Chapter 8: Closeness and Shadows. The evening air was cool, carrying the faint scent of the ocean as Logan led Frankie along the pier. Their hands brushed occasionally, light, teasing touches that lingered longer than necessary, each one leaving sparks that neither could ignore. "You know," Logan said, glancing at Frankie, "I feel like I can talk to you about anything. Even things I don't usually tell anyone." Frankie smiled softly, letting her fingers brush Logan's. "I like that. I like that too." Her voice carried warmth, but beneath it was a pulse of tension she couldn't shake. They stopped at a small bench overlooking the water, the city lights mirrored on the ripples below. Logan rested her head on Frankie's shoulder, letting out a quiet sigh. "You're easy to be around," Logan murmured. "I feel safe. I feel at home." Frankie's chest tightened. Safe. At home. Words she wanted more than anything, but every time she looked at Logan, she felt the weight of the secret she carried. The secret that could unravel everything if it ever came to light. "Home. Huh," Frankie whispered, tracing lazy circles on Logan's arm. Yeah, I get that feeling too." She hesitated, pulling back just slightly, enough for Logan to notice. "What's wrong?" Logan asked softly, eyes searching hers. "Nothing," Frankie said, forcing a smile. "Just tired, I guess. Walking, talking, you know life." Logan's lips quirked, unconvinced, but she didn't push. Instead, she leaned into Frankie's side, letting the warmth of her presence speak instead of words. The next week unfolded in a rhythm of closeness and stolen moments. Morning coffees turned into late-night walks, Dinners stretched into lingering conversations on the couch, knees brushing, fingers intertwined. Logan laughed easily at Frankie's dry wit, and Frankie found herself leaning closer, letting Logan's hazel eyes study her face, memorizing her expressions. Yet, with every laugh, every touch, every whispered word in the quiet of Logan's apartment, Frankie felt the undercurrent of dread. The thought of Logan ever finding out what she truly did clawed at her chest, a shadow behind the brightness of their moments. During a lazy Sunday in the park, Logan pressed her forehead against Frankie's, lips brushing hers in soft, lingering kisses. "I could stay like this forever," she murmured, arms tightening around Frankie. "Me too," Frankie whispered, though her hands trembled slightly. She traced fingers over Logan's back, savoring the closeness, but the weight in her chest refused to lift. Later, walking Logan back, Frankie felt the pull of her secret tighten, every step heavier. If she ever knew, if she ever saw what I really do, this perfect world we're building would come crashing down. And yet, she couldn't stop herself from leaning into Logan, from letting her heart sink deeper into theirs. Desire, love, trust, they were all there, but so was fear. The two danced side by side, entwined in a rhythm of intimacy and unease, knowing that the secret she carried was a storm waiting just beyond the horizon. As they paused at the doorway, Logan whispered, "Good night," again. Frankie pressed her forehead to Logan's, inhaling the familiar scent, memorizing the weight of her body against hers. "Good night," she whispered back, fighting the tremor of panic she couldn't share. Because the truth of her work was still waiting, quiet, patient, dangerous. And the closer they grew, the harder it would be to protect it. Chapter 9: Electric Tension. The city hummed outside Logan's apartment window, a soft symphony of distant traffic and occasional sirens. Inside, the room smelled faintly of coffee and Logan's vanilla candle, a warm cocoon around them. Frankie sat cross-legged on the couch, notebook resting on her lap, but her eyes kept drifting to Logan, sprawled casually beside her, legs brushing hers, a faint smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. "You're distracted," Logan said, raising an eyebrow, eyes glittering. "What are you thinking about?" Frankie forced a laugh, closing the notebook. "Nothing. Just plotting world domination. Typical Monday stuff." Logan leaned closer, resting her chin on Frankie's shoulder. I think I'd like to be your first victim." She pressed a soft kiss to the side of Frankie's neck, and Frankie's heart did that stuttering jump that never seemed to get easier. "You're impossible," Frankie whispered, but her hands traced lazy circles along Logan's arm, pulling her closer. "I know," Logan murmured, lips brushing against Frankie's temple. "And yet, here I am." They laughed softly, a shared, intimate sound that filled the quiet apartment. Frankie felt her chest tighten, not just from desire, but from the ever-present weight of what she couldn't say. Every time Logan smiled, every time she leaned in, Frankie felt the impossible choice pressing against her ribs: share her secret and risk everything, or protect it and live in quiet tension. "You know," Logan said, stretching out beside her, fingers lightly brushing Frankie's hand, "I don't usually trust people this quickly. But with you, it feels different. Safe." Frankie's throat tightened. Safe. The word echoed, both a promise and a threat. She nodded, voice soft. "I feel that too." Minutes stretched, the silence around them charged with unspoken words. Logan's hand found Frankie's, their fingers entwining naturally, like puzzle pieces clicking into place. Frankie's gaze fell to their joined hands. Every time she thought about her work, the things she touched, the memories it stirred, she felt the heat of fear creep up her spine. If she ever knew. Logan's voice broke the spell, teasing and soft. "You're quiet again. Planning your next conquest?" "Maybe," Frankie murmured, forcing a laugh. But her smile was tight and Logan noticed. "Hey," Logan said, nudging her shoulder gently. "You can tell me anything. Anything at all." Frankie's stomach twisted. The words were a siren, calling her to honesty, but the truth felt impossible. "Not yet." She squeezed Logan's hand, letting her thumb brush over her knuckles. I know. Thank you. Sometimes things are complicated." Logan's eyes softened, a shadow of concern flickering there. "Complicated is fine, but I don't like walls between us." Frankie swallowed hard, nodding, forcing the tension down. "I'll try," she whispered. They leaned into each other again, quiet kisses, fingers brushing, laughter spilling over the edges of the moment. Each touch was electric, each glance a promise, yet every heartbeat was also a warning. The closer they grew, the more fragile this world became. Frankie traced circles along Logan's back, careful to keep the tremor in her fingers hidden, careful to keep the secret locked away. "Not yet," she told herself. "Not yet. I can't ruin this. Not her. Not us." And as they lay together, tangled in warmth and quiet desire, the room seemed impossibly small, yet infinite, an island of intimacy poised on the edge of something neither of them could yet name. Chapter 10. Fractured Desire. The apartment was quiet except for the soft hum of the city outside. Logan leaned against the doorway, watching Frankie stretch lazily across the couch, sunlight catching her hair in fiery streaks. "You're ridiculously comfortable," Logan teased, walking over and plopping beside her. Their knees brushed, fingers grazing each other in a familiar, electric contact. "And you're ridiculously distracting," Frankie countered, a smirk curling her lips. She leaned back into Logan's warmth, feeling the pull of desire and connection, but the familiar knot of fear tightened in her chest. "Distracting in a good way or dangerous way?" Logan murmured, leaning in, letting their foreheads touch. Frankie hesitated, biting her lip, aware of how easily Logan could unravel her. "Both," she whispered, brushing a stray curl from Logan's face. Her heart raced, not just from proximity, but from the knowledge that one slip, one truth revealed, could destroy this delicate balance. They sank deeper into the couch together, laughter spilling, hands intertwining, playful touches grazing thighs and arms. Logan's hazel eyes sparkled with warmth and mischief, and Frankie felt herself melting into it, yet every touch carried an invisible weight. "You know," Logan said softly, tracing circles on Frankie's wrist, "I've never felt this connected to anyone before. Not like this." Frankie's chest tightened. She wanted to lean in, to let herself fully dissolve into the closeness, but the secret she carried, her work, the very thing that gave her purpose and terror, hovered like a shadow over her heart. Me neither," Frankie whispered, voice low, almost trembling. She pressed a kiss to Logan's temple, savoring the warmth. "It's nice, isn't it?" "Yes," Logan said, voice soft, lips brushing against Frankie's neck. "Nice. Perfect." Frankie closed her eyes, letting herself melt into the touch, but the tension in her chest refused to vanish. She remembered Logan's childhood fear, the stuffed bear, the poorly made toy that had scarred her, and a cold dread ran through her. If she ever saw what I do, if she ever saw what I am, this perfect world would come crumbling down. The rest of the evening unfolded in a dance of whispers, gentle touches, and soft laughter. Logan pressed kisses to her temple, traced patterns along her jaw, and whispered half-jokes that made Frankie laugh and sigh in equal measure. But every time Frankie let herself fully relax, every time her heart threatened to explode with love, the shadow of her secret lurked, reminding her, trust here was dangerous. Desire here was risky. Love here was a fragile thing she had to protect at all costs. Finally, Logan rested her head against Frankie's shoulder, eyes closed, fingers entwined. I don't ever want this to end, she whispered. Neither do I, Frankie breathed, holding her tight, hiding the tremor in her fingers and the panic in her chest. Not ever. And in that quiet embrace, Frankie understood the truth of her life's precarious balance. Love and desire were rising like a tide, but the secret she carried was a storm waiting just beyond the horizon. One day, it would demand attention, and she didn't know if this fragile world could survive the impact. Chapter 11. Cracks in the Sunshine. The park was alive with spring air, blades of grass shining with dew, children's laughter rippling across the lawns, dogs chasing frisbees, and sunlight scattering in golden patches. Logan held Frankie's hand loosely, letting her guide them through the winding paths. I love this, Logan said, taking a deep breath. The city feels so different when you step away from it, doesn't it? Frankie smiled, warmth spreading through her chest. It does. Peaceful. Makes it easy to forget the world for a while. They found a quiet spot near a pond, where ducks paddled lazily and the city buzz felt far away. Logan pulled Frankie onto a bench, settling beside her, knees touching. Their fingers intertwined naturally, casual and intimate all at once. You know, Logan said, tilting her head to look at Frankie, these days with you. I haven't felt this happy in a long time. Frankie's throat tightened, heart stuttering with both joy and the familiar edge of fear. Me neither. Her smile was soft, a quiet reflection of the warmth blooming between them, yet every glance at Logan reminded her how much was at stake. The sound of approaching footsteps broke the moment. A woman's voice, bright and warm, cut through the calm. Frankie, how are you? It's good to see you. I can't thank you enough for what you did for Bella. Keeping her memory alive, you're amazing. Frankie froze, a smile flickering across her face, but her hand tightened subtly around Logan's. Thank you, she said, voice careful, practiced. The woman waved goodbye, smiling at Frankie once more, leaving the two of them in the golden glow of the park. She watched the woman walk away, heart thudding in her chest. Logan blinked, curiosity flickering in her hazel eyes. Wait, what do you mean? Keeping her memory alive? You're a surgeon, right? Saving lives? Frankie swallowed hard, the familiar knot of tension tightening in her chest. She forced a laugh, trying to steer the moment into lightness. Yes, well, people sometimes find ways to honor those they love. Different ways. Logan frowned slightly, leaning closer. Different ways. Her gaze was sharp now, searching, trying to reconcile the warm woman she knew with this mysterious comment. What do you mean by that? I don't understand. Frankie's stomach lurched. The mask she had worn so carefully, the secret she had protected, felt suddenly heavy, suffocating. It's personal, she murmured, pulling her hand back just slightly, though it brushed Logan's fingers in a fleeting touch. Someone else's story. Not mine to tell. Logan's eyes softened, but the question lingered in the air, hanging like an unspoken warning. Frankie, you know you can tell me anything, right? I know, Frankie whispered, forcing a smile, though inside, the fear was a living thing. Every second Logan pressed closer, every curious glance, reminded her that this world they had built, this perfect, fragile closeness, was on the edge of shattering. Logan leaned back, thoughtful, her brow furrowed, while Frankie's heart pounded like a drum in her chest. I don't get it, Logan said softly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. What was that about? Frankie turned to her, eyes meeting hers, and smiled faintly, the weight of her secret pressing against her chest like a vice. Nothing that matters, she said. But the lie felt heavier than ever. They walked back hand in hand, laughter returning, but beneath the sunshine, the first real cracks had formed. Every step Frankie took now carried the tension of what she couldn't say, and the knowledge that it was only a matter of time before Logan might push too far, demanding answers she wasn't ready to give. Chapter 12. Fragile Trust. The apartment smelled faintly of rain and old books, a quiet sanctuary from the city's pulse. Logan flopped onto the couch, sprawled across the cushions, and grinned at Frankie. "You're late," she teased, stretching, hair falling over her face. "I was beginning to think you ditched me for a scalpel or some lab coat." Frankie laughed, but it was a fraction too short, the sound tight at the edges. "You know me too well," she said. She caught herself fidgeting with the strap before dropping her bag beside the door, fingers twisting nervously. "Don't slip up. Not here. Not now." Logan's hazel eyes softened, but she raised an eyebrow. "Everything okay? You've been distracted lately. Even at the park." Frankie forced a smile, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "I'm fine," she said quickly. "Really. Just work stuff, you know." Logan said, unconvinced, her tone gentle but probing. She stretched out beside Frankie on the couch, letting her hand rest lightly over Frankie's. Their fingers brushed, and Frankie flinched just slightly before relaxing, careful to keep the tremor hidden. They talked and laughed, sharing stories about history, childhood dreams, music. Their closeness deepened with every exchange, shoulders touching, knees brushing, whispers spilling across the quiet room. But under the warmth, Frankie felt a tension knotting tighter in her chest. Every smile from Logan, every intimate glance, reminded her of the fragile secret she carried. Every casual question about her work pressed against the walls she'd built around herself. One word, one slip, and this perfect world could collapse. Later, Logan leaned against her, chin resting on Frankie's shoulder. "I can't get over how easy this feels. Like I can tell you anything," she murmured. Frankie's fingers paused in their lazy tracing along Logan's arm. I feel the same," she said softly, though the unease beneath her words tightened her chest. "It's nice, isn't it? Feeling like someone actually gets you." "Yes," Logan whispered, eyes closed, tracing a fingertip along Frankie's hand. "I didn't know I could feel like this again, like everything's safe, even when the world's messy." Frankie swallowed hard, leaning into Logan, tasting the warmth, the closeness, the trust, but it was laced with a flicker of fear she couldn't shake. Safe, yes, but if she ever knew, if she ever saw the truth. A soft knock at the door startled them. Frankie jumped slightly, heart hammering, the sudden intrusion amplifying her unease. "Just mail, probably," she muttered, moving to grab it, careful not to reveal the tremor in her hands. Logan followed, curiosity soft in her voice. "You okay?" "You seemed tense." "I'm fine," Frankie said, forcing a laugh, handing her the envelope. "Really? Just startled." The evening stretched on, filled with whispered conversations, touches that lingered, playful teasing. Yet beneath every smile and laugh, Frankie carried the quiet weight of her secret, the knowledge that this intimacy was a fragile thing she had to protect. As Logan rested her head on Frankie's shoulder again, murmuring a soft, "I love this," Frankie kissed her hair, a bittersweet warmth filling her chest. "I love this too, but how long can I keep it from her?" And for the first time, the truth pressed against the walls she'd built, not a storm yet, but a shadow on the horizon that would not be ignored. Chapter 13. The Weight of Truth. Frankie sat across from Logan at the cafe, hands wrapped around her coffee cup, but the warmth of the mug did little to steady her racing thoughts. Logan's hazel eyes were soft, curious, expectant. But Frankie couldn't focus, not on her words, not on the light in Logan's eyes, not even on the gentle hum of the cafe around them. Her mind raced. How did I get here? How did I let it come to this? She had wanted so badly to protect this, protect her from the weight of what she did. But now, sitting across from the woman she had grown to love, every smile, every laugh, Every brush of fingers seemed to sharpen the edges of her own fear. Logan tilted her head, a faint crease between her brows. "Frankie, you're distracted again," she said gently, reaching across the table to touch her hand. "I can feel it. Something's on your mind. Please, you can tell me anything." Frankie's chest tightened, the words choking in her throat. She tried to smile, tried to brush it off, but the lie felt heavier than ever. She couldn't keep dancing around it anymore. Not when everything they had built, every laugh, every touch, every whisper, depended on trust. If I tell her, will she look at me differently? Will she run? Will everything crumble? Frankie's thoughts spun in dizzying circles. She remembered Logan's fear as a child, the way she had recoiled from the poorly made stuffed bear, the lingering unease in her voice. "And what I do could hurt her in ways she can't even imagine." Her fingers flexed nervously around the cup. "I can't lie anymore. I can't keep this from her. Not now, not ever." The weight of it pressed against her ribs, a tidal wave threatening to drown her. "I love her too much to let this fester. I love her too much to let her find out the wrong way. I have to tell her, but how?" She thought back to every touch, every glance, every moment of closeness. Every memory they had built together now carried a shadow of dread. And yet, she also felt the fierce, unyielding pull of love. "If I don't tell her, if I keep hiding, I will destroy us." Frankie inhaled, heart hammering, and imagined Logan's face, the warmth in her smile, the trust in her eyes. She wanted Logan to know her fully, without walls, without secrets. She wanted to feel that intimacy without fear hovering above it. "I have to do it. I have to tell her. Before this, whatever this is, becomes something I can't save." She closed her eyes briefly, tasting the bitter wheat mix of dread and courage. "I'm terrified. I'm terrified of losing her, of seeing that trust shatter. But I can't live with the lie anymore. I have to tell her. I have to let her see all of me, even the parts she might never forgive." Opening her eyes, Frankie met Logan's gaze, steadying herself as best she could. Her hand tightened slightly in Logan's. "Logan, there's something I need to tell you," she whispered, voice low but resolute. "Something important. And I don't know how you'll take it, but you deserve the truth." Logan's eyes softened, leaning in just a little, waiting, trust radiating from every line of her body. "I'm listening," she said gently. "You know I'm listening." And for the first time in months, Frankie allowed herself to breathe fully, terrified, vulnerable, and ready. The walls were falling. The secret could no longer hide. Chapter 14: Shadows of the Scalpel. The cafe was quieter than usual, the late afternoon sunlight slanting through the windows in soft golden beams. Frankie stirred her coffee absently, the ceramic warm beneath her fingers, but her mind was elsewhere. Logan watched her from across the table, concern softening her gaze. "You've been distant," Logan said gently, voice low, careful. "Please, whatever it is, I want to understand." Frankie took a deep breath, tracing the rim of her cup with a fingertip. "How do I even start? How do I make her see without shattering what we have?" "It's complicated," she whispered, words catching in her throat. "I had an accident a while back. It left my hands, not steady enough for surgery. For a while, I thought my life was over. I'd trained for years, and suddenly, I couldn't do what I loved. I couldn't save lives anymore." Logan's hand hovered over hers, hesitant, and then she placed it lightly on top. "Frankie, I'm so sorry. That must have been terrifying." It was, Frankie admitted, swallowing hard. "I felt lost, hollow, like something essential had been ripped from me. I didn't know who I was anymore. And someone suggested I try something that still required a scalpel, still needed precision, but not to save a life. To create something, to preserve a memory." Logan tilted her head, brows furrowed, eyes searching. "Create a memory?" "Yes," Frankie said, the words tasting bitter on her tongue. It's artistic, I suppose. Meticulous. It's delicate work. Rewarding in its own way, but different. Not what people expect when they think of a surgeon. Logan leaned back, fingers still touching Frankie's, but her eyes were clouded with confusion. I don't understand. Are you saying it's still medical work, but not life-saving? Frankie's throat tightened. She nodded slowly, forcing a laugh that didn't reach her eyes. Exactly. It's hard to explain. And I want to, I really do. But words, they fall short. Logan's expression softened, but the concern lingered. Whatever it is, whatever you're trying to say, you can tell me. I want to understand you. All of you. Frankie's chest ached with the weight of the half-truth she'd revealed. She deserves everything, but can she bear the rest? She wanted to tell Logan fully, to remove the walls that had kept her safe, but the fear of breaking their fragile world held her tongue hostage. I'll explain more when I can, Frankie whispered finally, voice almost a confession. I promise. Just, not yet. Logan's fingers squeezed hers gently. I'll wait, she said softly. We'll figure this out together. And for a moment, Frankie allowed herself to breathe, the warmth of Logan's hand anchoring her. But beneath it, the spiral had begun, the truth pressing closer, threatening, relentless. Every moment they shared now carried the tension of what was unsaid, a shadow hovering over the intimacy they had built so carefully. Frankie left the cafe that afternoon feeling both lifted and tethered, her heart full of love, yet heavy with the burden of the secret still unspoken. The closer they grew, the sharper the edges of her fear became, and she knew sooner or later, the walls would have to come down. Chapter 15. The Unveiling. Frankie's shoes scuffed against the hardwood floor, the sound echoing through Logan's apartment. Hands twisted together, knuckles white, pulse hammering in her ears. She couldn't sit. She couldn't stop moving. Every step was a fight against the lump in her throat, against the fear that had been gnawing at her for weeks. Frankie, Logan said softly, rising from the couch. Her voice carried warmth, patience, something steady amidst the storm. Please sit. Let's just talk. Frankie shook her head, pacing in a tight circle. I can't. Not yet. I need to. I need to get it out. All of it. I can't. I can't keep pretending. Logan followed, placing a hand lightly on Frankie's shoulder. You're shaking. Come on, breathe. Talk to me. Please. Frankie jerked slightly at the touch, then took a shuddering breath. Words stumbled out, raw and frantic. I haven't been honest with you. About everything. About what I do. About who I am when I'm not with you. Logan's brow furrowed, heart tightening. Frankie, what are you? I don't know how to say it. I've tried every day. I've tried to make it okay, too, to protect us. Protect you. But I can't. I can't keep this from you anymore. Her voice broke, trembling, eyes glistening. I stuff animals. People's pets, their beloved pets. I give them a chance to hold on to something when they can't. The words fell like stones in the apartment, heavy, irreversible. Silence stretched between them, thick and suffocating. Logan's hazel eyes widened, shock flickering there first, then confusion, then something deeper. Her hand hovered in the air, frozen, as if unsure whether to retreat or reach for Frankie. Frankie's chest heaved. I know. It sounds insane. It's not saving lives. It's creating memories. I didn't want to tell you because I thought you'd hate it. Hate me. And I love you. I love you so much, and I didn't want this to ruin what we have. Her voice trembled, a mix of desperation and vulnerability, and the apartment seemed impossibly quiet, as if the city outside had held its breath. Logan's lips parted, but no words came. She simply stared, hazel eyes wide, scanning Frankie's face, searching for the woman she loved behind the confession. Frankie sank to her knees, head bowed, hands clutched in her lap. "I'm sorry. I should have told you. I should have been honest from the start. But I was terrified. Terrified of losing you. Of everything." The silence stretched, heavy and infinite. The only sound was Frankie's ragged breathing and the faint hum of the city beyond the windows. Logan finally knelt beside her, placing a gentle hand on Frankie's shoulder. Not judging, not recoiling, just steady. "Frankie." Her voice faltered, searching for the right words. I need a moment to process this. But I'm not walking away." Frankie's eyes snapped up, searching, hoping, desperate. "You're not." Logan shook her head slowly, her gaze softening, but still wary. "No, God, no. I love you. I need to understand. Help me understand, please." For the first time in weeks, Frankie let herself breathe fully, relief mingled with terror. The truth was out, raw and vulnerable, and now the real journey began. The spiral of emotion, the reckoning of trust, and the fragile rebuilding of what they shared. Chapter 17. Facing the Fear. A week had passed, each day stretching longer than the last. Frankie had barely slept, each notification from her phone sending her heart into a spiral, half hoping it wouldn't be Logan, half praying it would be. She replayed that day at the apartment over and over, Logan's wide eyes, the silence, the cautious words. And then the call came. "Frankie, can I come see your studio?" Logan's voice trembled, soft but firm, carrying both fear and determination. I need to face this. I need to know if I can be with you fully knowing everything." Frankie's stomach plummeted. Her hands twisted together nervously. You want to see it?" "Now." "Yes," Logan said, and there was no hesitation, only that raw honesty that made Frankie's chest ache. "I love you. And I need to face my fear. I want to understand. Please, let me see it." Frankie swallowed hard, every nerve screaming. What if she runs? What if this destroys everything? But then she felt it, her love, burning too fiercely to hide anymore. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay, you can come see." The studio smelled of wood and faint antiseptic, a subtle tang of something clean and alive. Frankie's hands shook as she led Logan inside, heart hammering, breath shallow. The room was quiet except for the faint hum of the overhead light. Frankie's eyes flicked to the table where the cat she was working on sat, perfectly poised, fur soft, tail curling just right. It looked alive. Too alive. "Frankie," Logan's voice was barely a whisper, and she stepped forward, careful, reverent. Her eyes widened as she took in the cat. It wasn't her childhood fear, the sloppy, uncanny stuffed toys that had scarred her. This was exquisite, realistic, tender. It radiated care, attention, artistry. Frankie exhaled slowly, stepping back, hands still trembling. I know it's different from what scared you before. I wanted you to see it, the real work. The care I put into it. The love, even." Logan moved closer, almost mesmerized, fingers hovering above the table but not touching. It doesn't look like my fear," she said softly, eyes wide, a small, tentative smile breaking through. It's beautiful. It's alive. I get it now. I see why you do this." Frankie's chest expanded with relief, tears pricking her eyes. "I was terrified," she whispered. "Terrified you'd see it and hate me. That you'd run." Logan finally turned to her, fingers brushing against Frankie's cheek, gentle, grounding. "I won't run," she said firmly. "I love you, Frankie. I love you so much. And I can see the care in your work. I can face my fear because of you." Frankie felt the tension melting from her shoulders, the tight spiral of anxiety loosening for the first time in weeks. The intimacy in that moment, fragile and powerful, held them both in quiet wonder. She had feared rejection, abandonment, losing this perfect bond, but Logan's courage, her willingness to step into fear for love, was stronger than any of her anxieties. The cat on the table seemed to glow under the studio light, a testament to care, devotion, and artistry. And in that glow, Frankie finally let herself believe that love, truthful, raw, terrifying love, could survive even the darkest fears. Chapter 18: Reclaiming the Scalpel. The morning sun spilled through the studio windows, warming the hardwood floors and catching the dust motes that danced lazily in the air. Frankie stood at her workbench, hands poised over the cat she'd nearly finished the day before, but her mind wasn't on the precise stitching or the delicate shaping. It was on Logan. She'd replayed the week since the reveal over and over: Logan's courage, her willingness to face her fear, the way she had looked at Frankie with awe rather than disgust. It had been terrifying, that day in the studio, but it had also been liberating. Frankie had realized, with a pounding heart and a shaky exhale, that she could have lost the most important person in her life. And she would never let that happen. Frankie took a deep breath, straightened her shoulders, and allowed her gaze to sweep over the studio. This was her sanctuary, her artistry, her precision, and she was not going to hide from it anymore. Not from Logan. Not from herself. She picked up her phone and drafted a cautious message to a former colleague from the hospital, a mentor she'd respected for years. Just a small step, a brief check-in, nothing more. Her fingers hovered for a moment before she pressed send, heart thrumming with a mix of fear and exhilaration. Small steps, she muttered to herself. One at a time. You've done it before. You can do it again. As she worked, her movements were precise, almost meditative. Each stitch, each careful adjustment, reminded her of the skill she had honed over years, the hands that had once saved lives now capable of preserving memories with the same dedication and care. Her phone pinged a reply. The message was warm, encouraging, a bridge back into a world she had feared she could no longer enter. A tiny spark of confidence flickered within her, igniting a determination she hadn't felt in months. Logan appeared in the doorway, leaning against the frame with a soft smile. "Morning," she said quietly, voice full of the easy intimacy they now shared. "You're in your element today." Frankie looked up, hands stilling for a moment, and felt the warmth of love and trust spread through her chest. "Yeah," she said, her voice steady, full of conviction. I needed this. Needed to remember I still have something to offer, that I'm still me." Logan pushed off the doorway and stepped into the studio, fingers brushing against Frankie's as they passed. "You are you," she said, eyes soft and unwavering. "And I love all of it. Every part, even the parts you were afraid to show me." Frankie let herself smile, small and tentative at first, then wider as the fear of loss melted into courage. "I've been afraid," she admitted, voice low. "Afraid of losing everything, of being powerless. But not anymore. I'm going to take back what's mine. My life. My skill. My everything." Logan reached for her hand, squeezing gently, grounding her. "Then we'll do it together," she said. "Every step. Every moment." For the first time in a long while, Frankie felt whole. Fear had been a shadow at her back, but love, trust, and determination were pushing her forward. She had faced the one thing she feared most, and survived. And now, with Logan beside her, she could finally reclaim herself, hands, heart, and soul, one deliberate, precise step at a time. Chapter 19: The First Scalpel. Frankie stared at her phone like it might explode, the message from her mentor glowing softly in the dim light of her apartment. "We have a case tomorrow. One procedure. Only you. Think you're ready? Her stomach twisted. One surgery. Just one. A small step, they'd said. But to her, it felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. The hands that had once moved with effortless precision now felt foreign, betraying her with phantom shakes she feared she could never erase. She set the phone down and ran a hand through her hair, exhaling shakily. I don't know if I can do this, she murmured. Logan's voice came softly from the doorway. Yes, you can. She stepped closer, brushing a reassuring hand across Frankie's arm. You've been training for this your whole life. And I'll be with you. Every step. Frankie turned, searching Logan's hazel eyes for any hint of doubt, but found only unwavering faith. Her chest tightened, not from fear, but from love. I'm scared, she admitted, voice low. What if I fail? What if my hands? You won't fail, Logan said firmly, reaching for her hands and wrapping her own around them. You've saved lives. You've conquered fear before. You're not alone. The night stretched long, nerves coiling around Frankie's chest, but she found comfort in Logan's presence. Every touch, every steadying squeeze of her hand anchored her, grounding her like an invisible tether to courage. The next morning, Frankie arrived at the hospital early, heart hammering beneath her scrubs. The familiar smell of antiseptic, the hum of fluorescent lights, the low murmur of the oar, it all hit her at once. She drew a shaky breath, glancing down at her hands, flexing her fingers slowly. You okay? Logan's voice came softly through the phone speaker she had tucked in her scrub pocket. Yes, Frankie whispered, closing her eyes briefly. I think so. The mentor greeted her warmly, guiding her to the sterile field. Just one surgery, Francesca. Focus. Trust yourself. You know this. Frankie nodded, every step deliberate, every breath measured. She scrubbed in, hands trembling slightly, but Logan's calm presence through the phone's soft words, quiet encouragement, pulled her back from the edge. The procedure began. The scalpel met the incision with deliberate precision. Each movement, once second nature, came back slowly, carefully, almost ceremoniously. Frankie's pulse raced, but she kept her focus, anchoring herself to the confidence Logan's voice infused. And as the surgery progressed, the tremors eased. Her hands remembered. Her mind cleared. Every cut, every suture was proof that she was still herself, still capable, still strong. When the procedure ended, the room quiet except for the soft beeping of machines, Frankie exhaled fully, a shaky laugh escaping her lips. I did it, she whispered. You did, Logan said through the speaker, her voice full of pride and warmth. You never lost it. You never lost yourself. I told you, you could do this. Frankie's eyes brimmed with tears, not from fear now, but relief. She had faced the edge of everything she feared losing and stepped back onto solid ground, hand in hand with the woman she loved. For the first time in months, the weight of doubt lifted. She had reclaimed more than her skill, she had reclaimed herself. Chapter 20. Home in the OR. The hum of the operating room was like music to Frankie's ears, each beep, each footstep, each whispered instruction grounding her in the rhythm she had once known so well. She moved with quiet authority, her hands steady, precise, familiar in the way only a master could command. Logan waited outside the OR for a moment, but Frankie told her she can leave. This was her world, her space to reclaim. And yet, even within these walls, Logan's steady presence echoed in her thoughts, reminder of why she had fought so hard to be whole again. One procedure turned into 2, then 3. Each patient, each incision, each careful suture was a step further back into the rhythm of her old life. Fear had not disappeared entirely, but it no longer dominated. It had been replaced by determination, by the fierce pride of someone reclaiming what was always theirs. The following week, the hospital administration called. Frankie listened carefully as her mentor explained, voice full of admiration. "You've done more than return, Francesca. You've proven not just skill, but resilience. The board would like to offer you the head surgeon position here. The department you once led, yours again, if you'll take it." Frankie's hands tightened slightly around the phone, pulse racing, not from nerves, but disbelief mixed with exhilaration. Yes, she whispered, voice trembling with emotion. "I'll take it. Thank you so much." She hung up and let herself sink into the nearest chair, a laugh escaping her lips, half disbelief, half pure joy. Logan appeared in the doorway, a knowing smile lighting her face. "You did it," Logan said softly, stepping closer. "You've claimed everything that's yours. Your skill, your power, your life." Frankie reached out, hands brushing against Logan's. "I was so afraid," she admitted, voice low, eyes shining. "Afraid I'd lose it all, afraid I'd lose you. But here I am. And I couldn't have done this without you." Logan cupped her face gently, thumbs brushing against her cheeks. "You did this. You always had it in you. I just stood beside you while you remembered it." Frankie smiled, the weight of fear lifting entirely. The hospital, the patients, they were her domain again. But more than that, she had built something new with Logan, a life rooted in trust, love, and courage. The journey had been long, jagged, terrifying at times. But standing here, finally whole, Frankie knew that both her professional and personal worlds had come together in a way stronger than ever. She glanced at Logan, heart full, and whispered, "Let's go home. I want to celebrate, just us." Logan's eyes sparkled, mirroring the warmth in Frankie's chest. "Home, together," she agreed, squeezing Frankie's hand. "That's exactly where we belong." And with that, the surgeon who had once feared losing herself stepped fully into her power, her love, and the life she had fought to reclaim, hands steady, heart full, and soul unbroken. Chapter 21. The Proposal. Months had passed since Frankie reclaimed her place in the OR. Every day brought new confidence, new triumphs, and a rhythm she thought she might never feel again. Yet, even amidst the controlled precision of surgery and the exhilaration of leading her department, one thought lingered brighter than all else: Logan. Tonight, she had made a plan. A plan that made her pulse race, hands shake just slightly, not from fear, but from anticipation. She had called Logan hours earlier, keeping her voice steady, calm, teasing just a little, "Meet me tonight. Just you. Just us." The restaurant was intimate, candlelight casting soft golden glows across linen-draped tables. Frankie had arrived early, selecting a secluded corner where the world could fall away, leaving only the two of them. She waited, heart hammering, nerves wrapped in excitement. Then she saw her Logan, gliding through the restaurant, hazel eyes searching. The moment their eyes met, Frankie's chest swelled with a tide of emotion too vast to name. She moved to her knees before Logan, heart loud in her ears, hands clasping the small velvet box she had carried in her pocket all evening. "Frankie," Logan breathed, eyes wide, taking a step closer, her hand reaching out instinctively. Frankie's fingers shook as she opened the box, revealing the ring that glimmered like captured sunlight. "Logan," she whispered, voice trembling with both love and reverence. "You have been my anchor, my courage, my home. You've faced fear with me, trusted me, loved me through every shadow I thought I'd never escape. And now, I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me?" Logan's breath caught, eyes filling with tears that reflected every shared moment, the laughter, the vulnerability, the nights of whispered confessions, the fierce intensity of trust forged in fire. She sank slightly to her knees to meet Frankie, hands trembling as they brushed together. "Frankie," she said, voice thick with emotion. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. I've never wanted anything more than this. You. Us. Forever." Frankie's heart soared, tears streaming down her face as she slid the ring onto Logan's finger. The world around them seemed to blur into a golden haze, the candlelight dancing off their hands, their joined smiles, the unspoken promise of every tomorrow. Logan leaned forward, resting her forehead against Frankie's, whispering, "You are my life, Frankie. My everything." "And you are mine," Frankie replied, voice breaking with joy. "Always." The restaurant faded into a soft background hum, unnoticed by the two of them, as their hands intertwined, hearts beating in synchrony. Months of fear, struggle, triumph, and love had led to this, an unshakable bond sealed not just by words, but by courage, trust, and the fearless willingness to love fully. Tonight, the world belonged to them, and for the first time in a long while, Frankie felt utterly, irreversibly whole. Epilogue. Vows at dusk. 6 months later. The afternoon was warm, soft sunlight spilling over the little hilltop where they had chosen to marry. Only a handful of friends had gathered, and the world beyond seemed to fade, leaving just Frankie and Logan, their hands entwined, hearts laid bare. Frankie's eyes glimmered as she faced Logan, voice steady but trembling with emotion. "Logan, you have been my courage when I faltered, my calm when my world shook, and my anchor through every fear. Today, I vow to hold your heart as tenderly as you hold mine, to stand beside you in every storm and in every light, to love you fiercely, wholly, and endlessly." Logan's lips curved into a soft, shining smile, her eyes wet with tears that she didn't try to hide. "Frankie, you are my home, my fire, my truth. I vow to see you fully in every moment, your fears, your dreams, your triumphs. I promise to cherish our love as it grows, to laugh with you, grieve with you, and face every tomorrow together. You are my heart, my soul, my always." They slid rings onto each other's fingers, the simple gold gleaming in the fading sunlight, a symbol of devotion and the countless battles and victories that had led them here. The officiant declared them married. When the vows were done, they stood hand in hand, shoulders brushing, breath mingling, eyes fixed on the horizon. The sky blazed with streaks of amber, pink, and gold, the sunset mirroring the warmth and intensity of the love they shared. Frankie leaned slightly against Logan, whispering softly, "We made it, love. Every fear, every shadow, we made it." Logan pressed her forehead to Frankie's, voice low and reverent. "Yes, together. Always together." For a long moment, they simply stood there, hearts aligned, souls tethered in a quiet, unbreakable bond. The world was vast, unpredictable, and full of unknowns, but at that moment, nothing existed beyond their joined hands and the radiant, endless sky before them. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the clouds in fire and gold, Frankie and Logan remained there, together, whole, and unshakably in love. Thank you so much for listening. Please subscribe and like this video and follow me for more stories. You are always welcome here, and leave me a comment or a thumbs up, just letting me know if you like the story and would like more, or is there perhaps an idea that you would like to share or let me write for you.